Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, both of you, for coming here today. You know, the identity theft and fraud is something that we're hearing more and more about. All of us are, on both sides of the aisle in Congress, in our districts, in rural areas, and in urban areas. You've heard about the grandparents scam, the IRS impersonation scam, all these different kind of things. There's a task force here in Congress. It's bipartisan to prevent identity theft and fraud. And we learn about new ones every day, and I'm sure you learn about new ones. What are some of the new IRS kind of related scams that you're hearing about that you can share with us, either of you?
Yesterday morning, I received a phone call at my house from someone impersonating the IRS who informed me that I was about to have a lawsuit filed against me. Now, I can assure you that I do not have a past IRS debt because I would not be sitting here if I did. I would be fired. So I let it go to voicemail, and then I sat down with my cell phone and tried to tape. I called them back and attempted to tape, and as I asked them questions and expressed dismay that they thought I had an IRS debt, they hung up on me. So I have a very short tape that I will share with Mr. George shortly. But this is the kind of thing that they do. And again, I'm very concerned that most of us let our calls go to voicemail when we see an unrecognized number, but the vulnerable folks, the elderly, the people, you know, they're the ones that pick up the phones, and they're the ones that get sucked into the scams, whatever the variation is. And I have seen scams where letters have come out under my signature. It's not my signature, but they have the Taxpayer Advocate Service letterhead. They have my address in the national office, and they are posing as me, saying, we have a refund to you, we need your mother's maiden name and your bank account and things like that to get it to you.
Well, that's one thing that you can highlight for us right now is how does the IRS contact you? The IRS will never call you and say, hey, you owe money, or hey, we have something for you. It's always by mail, is that correct?
For the most part, yes.
Except for the private debt collectors.
Okay,
yeah.
fine.
But that's
Good.
not about identity theft.
Right.
Yeah. I would, if I may, sir, just note quickly that the IRS is dealing with a very unusual situation in that identity thieves are very agile, and their tactics change almost on a daily basis. And so it is challenging for the IRS to keep up with the new ways that the bad guys go after innocent, taxpayers, particularly the elderly, and in some instances, people using, ITINs and other forms to pay their taxes. So it is a huge challenge for the IRS. They have instituted in their computer systems what they're calling identity theft filters, which help the IRS identify tax returns that have characteristics of identity, theft. And again, it gets a little much more into the weeds than I think we have enough time for me to provide a full description now. But they are making strides, but they have to try to keep up with the wave.
Yeah, I'd love to have further conversations with you in the task force so we can, because really what we have to do here is, how do we combat this? We have to better educate people
Exactly.
about what's at the other end when these nefarious folks and groups are trying to bilk hardworking Americans of their hard-earned dollars. And so, as a taxpayer advocate, how are you able to educate and get it out there about these scams?
Well, I'm fortunate because I have an office in each state because you all ordered that in the law. And so I have now 76 offices, and identity theft is a major source of outreach for our local taxpayer advocates. And they hand out and make available to people the IRS's list of the most current scams. The IRS has a website. When they hear about a scam, they put it up there, but a lot of people don't check that. So you have to do that outreach, and you have to work through stakeholder groups in the community and think about where you can get information about that into the newsletters, onto the local news stations, give interviews, et cetera. So you get it in the consciousness to people. Be very careful. The IRS doesn't call you. You get one of these calls, hang up, call the 1040
Or
number
keep them
back.
on the line so they're not doing it to anyone.
Well, to doing it to anybody else, start taping. But call back the IRS 1040 number and see if there really is somebody by that name, and is it a legitimate thing?
Right.
And Ms. Olson is exactly right. We at TIGTA have been very proactive in reaching out to Apple, for example, because one of the most recent examples of this scam, the caller would say, you owe the money either for a lottery or because you're past due, what have you, put it on an iTunes card. And, to most people that would seem like, a ridiculous thing to do, but unfortunately too many people did fall prey to that. So we were able, both in terms of working with Apple and other, but even Walmart, we got them to be able to put over the loudspeaker, beware, do not use iTunes cards for so-and-so. So it's right, you have to saturate people. You have to repeat things many times, but we are trying to be proactive and thinking outside the box in this area.
Well, I know our task force a bipartisan task force at that, because this is a bipartisan issue. We all want to combat identity theft and fraud. We'll have further discussions. Thank you for your good work, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bishop.